I'll just give a quick introduction. So thank you again, everyone, for coming. This is our second episode of Ramadan Conversations. The last episode that we had, we covered a lot about Ramadan, what it is, the practices. We had a discussion about it. We have Hasan Tariq, who is going to be moderating. And of course, we are from the Human Rights Institute here at Kean. We like to highlight different cultural events throughout the semester. So we just wanted to really highlight Ramadan. And I think we're going to be talking more today about Islam and conceptions and misconceptions about Islam, but it'll be a little bit more open. So I will hand it over to Hasan now.
Sorry, I was on mute. Anyway, how's everybody doing? I hope everybody who is practicing Ramadan is having a successful, blessed Ramadan. And just like Muhammad said, sometimes we feel it, sometimes we don't, but I hope everybody's having a good one. And, for this conversation, like Tiffany said, we're going to discuss the conceptions and misconceptions of Islam, but more importantly, we're going to have a conversation on Islam and why it's so important to have conversations such as these in institutions, educational environments where people can learn about it. And the reason why it's so important is because nowadays it's so easily to be duped into believing in something else. It's so easily to believe in something that's false. With the age of Trump, during the Trump administration, we saw misinformation happening in a rapid rate. And that was for COVID-19. And we saw people believing in stuff that did not have any scientific backing, believing in stuff that did not have any educational backing, but just believing in it because the leader, our president at the time, said so. And that's also the case sometimes when it comes to religion and when it comes to different ideologies and different subjects. People believe in something or get duped into believing in something when someone of a accredited figure you can say something. And there's usually a lot of that happens in different cultures and different places. But most importantly, where I want to get into is in Islam. I kind of see that a lot in the news. The news has one perception of Muslims, and that's the sad reality at the moment. And when it comes to the news, the sad reality of Muslims, they don't always show us in the spotlight. I'm happy to see that when a different administration comes in office that we have, presidents saying Ramadan Mubarak and, presidents saying, congratulations to all the Muslims that are practicing Islam. But even then, we're still not recognized as a holiday in the United States. Even then, I still have to be in classes until 7:30 and not be excused to go open my fast. Even then, we're not nationally recognized. Even then, we still don't have Eid off for our holiday breaks during school. Even then, we still have professors and teachers when we have Muslim students that are fasting during their lunch breaks in elementary school, through middle school, through high school, asking, why are you fasting? Why aren't you not eating with the other students? And I remember clearly when I was younger in elementary school, I had a lunch lady, or I think we used to have lunch correspondence teachers that used to walk with us through the lunches. And she was like, why aren't you fasting? I was fasting in elementary school. And she was like, why are you fasting? You're going to starve yourself to death. And I was like, I felt too obliged to what she was saying. Like, yeah, I am going to starve to death. But I also felt so uncomfortable at the moment because she said it publicly. And she didn't understand why I was fasting. And as a kid, those principles aren't fully stuck into you. When she was like, hey, you should eat something. I remember she forced me to get up, get lunch, get something that wasn't halal in the first place. And I told her I don't eat stuff that's not halal. She's like, oh no, this is fine. Your culture prohibits it. And as a kid, I was so taken by that situation, by her, by her words, that I went with it. And not realizing, one, as a kid, I didn't know that I shouldn't have been doing in that situation. But above all, she should have had the education to know, hey, he's a Muslim, he's practicing Ramadan, he's fasting. That's not a place where I can speak upon on these students and force upon my own beliefs to put on him. Just because I'm the one student that's sitting and not eating doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong. And that's why it's so important to have conversation as these, because we could teach educators, we could teach different people that don't understand the religion or don't understand what Ramadan is, that, you might have students in your class that, or might have people that, might be tired or, fasting, but they're practicing it for this reason. We went over the last time we spoke with Muhammad and Fahad over the 5 pillars of Islam. And within the 5 pillars of Islam, this is one of them. This is one of the most important pillars as well, is to fast. It's important to discuss that. And it's important to discuss why Ramadan is so important to us, because this was also the month where the Quran was shown and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was spreading the religion of Islam from this point on. And this religion means not only to the South Asian community, not only to just one certain group of people, but to a majority of people. There's a lot of different Muslims in the United States. They're Black, they're white, they're Asian. They could be a different amount of thing. And having these conversations, we discuss different races. And we see that a lot right now, is that the Asian American community is suffering through hate. And people don't understand that that community is our community as well. That's everybody's community. Once we discuss this type of hate, we can end different problems within the world. And this is why I come back to why it's so important to have these conversations, is because if we don't have these conversations, other people won't. And we clearly see that the tough conversations are something that are not being discussed in our government, are not being discussed in our institutions, and are not being discussed in our educational circles. And that's something where we need to discuss upon. And I want to get to Islamophobia, and something that's really bothers me all the time is right now globally we have an Islamophobia pandemic where people of the Islamic faith are being put into jail cells, are being executed, or are being crucified for their religion. And one example is that in China, and there's the Uyghur Muslim crisis right now. It's terrible, and not enough people are talking about it. But above all, you could look at France. Women are not allowed to wear hijabs, which is absolutely scary to me, because my mother wore a hijab my whole life. So she wouldn't be able to participate in her religion or participate with my family anywhere she went. She would honestly just stay home. I know that for a fact, because once she truly believes in her religion, but true, it's her God-given right to wear whatever she wants. And it's crazy to me that we live in a world where people are more terrified of a woman wearing a hijab than people who don't follow the COVID-19 rule by putting a mask on. It's crazy to me that we live in a society that Muslims continue to having to defend themselves, but also make sure that they fit into the society we are in. I was always told, don't make a ruckus, don't be too obnoxious in school, don't be too outspoken, don't be too outgoing, because if you say one wrong thing, as Muslims, we are all from the 9/11 pre-era, it's like you're looked at as a target. And I remember whenever they taught 9/11 in elementary school as being the only Muslim there, I would have faces look behind me sitting at the end and look behind at me. It's something that we still are haunted by today, because we have to defend something that we're not even part of. And that's where I get to is like, leaders can manipulate the truth. And sometimes that's an issue. We can have our own newspapers, like Malcolm X said, hating our own people that didn't do anything. And it's clearly shown that when something happens within the Muslim faith, right, and it's not even, it's one Muslim, supposedly it personifies every Muslim out there. And that's not how the way it should be. And that's when I talk about media portrays sometimes Muslims, whenever a situation happens, if it's someone with a Muslim name, that as soon as they're a terrorist. Yes, they're a terrorist, but they do not represent all of Islam. They do not represent Islam as a whole. And that's where we need to continue having discussions on Islam and having discussions on people's perceptions of what we can do to combat this type of hate, what we can do to combat Islamophobia, and how we can go upon it. And Tiffany, if there's anybody that has a question, or if anybody also wants to chime in, I would love to hear it. Like I said, I want to have an open conversation about this. And I say that because, like I said before, the Asian community is facing hate. The Black community is facing hate. You know, we're all facing some sort of racism. We're all should be in this together, but we all have different causes that we need to represent. And that's one thing I want to say right away is that, hey, the Black Lives Matter movement is going on. It doesn't mean as Muslims we come in and say, hey, the Muslim Lives Matter movement right now matters a lot more. We don't say all lives matter. We say the Black Lives Matter. You know, that's important to say Black Lives Matter before you even say Muslim Lives Matter, because that's the issue that needs to be supported at the moment. You can't bring up other issues. But whereas as a whole, we need to discuss these issues and see how we can help each other combat this type of hate. And like I said, this is an open conversation. If anybody else wants to speak upon it or chime in, please do so. I think we have a hand up.
Yeah, Jamie here has her hand up. You can unmute Jamie.
Hi. So I'm gonna say something that's like unpopular, and this applies to like what you're saying. And I learned this through like my classes that I've been taking this semester. And I learned that the reason why we have all these issues going on between like different race is because we all don't look at each other the same. We all look at each other so differently. And the problem is, since we all do that, we don't see that we're all human and we're all the same inside. Like we all have the same body parts, like the same fluids that go into you and me. It's all the same. And that's why all these issues are popping up and rising up. And we don't come together and realize that, hey, that's an actual human being. Like that could be my brother, that could be my sister, that could be my family, you know.
And that's the importance of empathy and respect. If we truly respected all of us, you know, we truly respected each other, we wouldn't have these type of issues. You know, yes, we're different, you know, and it's okay to be different. You know, it's okay for a person to be Jewish. It's okay for a person to be Christian. It's okay. You know, we respect them as a person. We respect them for their religion. You know, I always bring this up, like people think Muslims and the Jewish community have some kind of hate. But the thing is that the Jewish community, the Muslim community is the most collaborative when it comes to fighting hate, because the Jewish community gets looked upon as Muslims, just as the Muslim community gets looked upon as Muslims. And the Sikh community gets looked upon as Muslim, just as, you know, as Muslims. We don't, just because some Muslims don't wear a turban, but people personify a turban as somebody as a Muslim faith. And I've had that happened to me. And I remember I was working at my job, and I remember some lady came up to me. She's like, "Are you Muslim?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "I hate Muslims." And I'm like, "Why do you say that?" And she pointed at someone that was from a Sikh community wearing a turban. She's like, "Well, he doesn't respect women." And I told her, first of all, he's not even Muslim. You know, that's why it's so important to have conversation as this. And people think racism and hate is from one race. At the moment, people think it's from one race, or it's from a certain type of people. No, it's from every type of person. You can see racism and hate from every type of community, every type of people. It doesn't matter. Racism does not have an ethnicity. It can come from anywhere. And that's why it's so important, like Jamie, you said, is to have these conversations and to understand that we're all all of us are from, we have the same body parts, we're the same people. We just have to respect each other. Exactly. Racism has no label, and we just have to respect each other. And that's so important to do so. If anybody else would like to say a comment or chime in, that'd be great.
Yeah. If anyone has any questions or comments, just feel free to just say something. Maybe if anyone would like to talk about, I know Hasan has shared multiple stories here about where he was discriminated against. If anyone wants to discuss something that happened to them, or maybe even like something like a like something passive aggressive, or just things throughout your life that like you realized, even if you aren't Muslim, like even if you saw something happen to someone else, maybe you could like we could talk about that.
And if you don't feel comfortable enough to say, talk about it, it's perfectly fine. And
Yeah.
and this conversation is about, understanding, one, how to combat that hate, and two, where does that hate come from? And that hate comes from misunderstanding, misinterpretations of people, and not respecting people. And above all, what we can do at all times is, one, don't be bystanders to hate. Always speak up against hate. And if someone is misunderstood, make sure they understand what's the truth, and it's okay for people to say, I don't know. And it's okay for people to say, I was wrong. And that's something we don't see enough in our society no more, is people say, I was wrong, and it's okay to be wrong. And sometimes I'm sitting here and speaking and I don't know everything. And it's proof, when I was with Muhammad and Fahad speaking about Islam 101, they said a lot of stuff that was repetition to me, and was something I didn't know, and it helped me gain more knowledge. And to talk about a little about the persistent myths about Islam is definitely something I really would love to talk about. Is the persistent myths of Islam is that, hey, we're a religion that is very aggressive. Well, these are preconceived, notions about Islam, that one, we're a religion that's aggressive. One, we're a religion in turmoil. One, we're a religion of there's just too much combat, or it's too oppressive. People always make that comment that, hey, Muslim women are oppressed, and Muslims always say this is, okay, you see a nun and then you see a Muslim woman, do you think she's oppressed, and do you think the nun's not? It's no, they're not. In our religion, Muslim women have the choice to put on a hijab or not. It's no one is forcing upon them, and no one should force that upon them. It's not something you tell a woman to do. A woman has her own right, and we should see Islam as just as how we see Christianity or other religions that have women covering themselves, is because that's their religion. How they want to go about their religion, we should respect it. How they want to wear their traditional clothes, we should respect it. That is perfectly fine. And another persistent myth about Islam that I truly hate is that we're a religion of aggressiveness. Sometimes we produce radicals, Islamic terrorists, and all that. And it's funny, there's a lot of big components upon that go about that and talk about that. Donald Trump did that before his race. The Muslim ban was one of it that came upon it, and you could see through the policy making process, he started it right before his campaign. He started it before his campaign. He would talk about how we would lock up all the terrorists, the sleeper cells, blah, blah, blah. But the truth of it all, Islam is a way of life, and it's a way of peaceful life. It's not a way of violence. It's not. In Islam, they say if you kill one person, you're killing a whole mankind. I might have quoted that wrong, but you kill more than 1,000 people. Killing is profound upon, and and this persistent myth is continue to happen within within media, and I feel like a lot of it happened is because of so much turmoil in the Middle East. You know, we would hear during the Iraq War about suicide bombings and all that. And one, let me just say, suicide is completely wrong in our religion. That is not allowed. And we had this conversation with Muhammad last time. Jihad, the word jihad was taken out of context a lot in the media, in the news media. You know, jihad does not mean, oh, you go commit violence. Jihad just means your strong religion passion of what you're gonna do. It's just a sense of that, you know, and it was taken out of context a lot. And that's why having these conversations are so important. It's because people are taking out of context different stuff and putting it on people. And we continue this rhetoric of Islam being, you know, a oppressed religion. You know, people in the Middle East can't function together. Hey, in my opinion, the Middle East would be the Middle East if we didn't have proxy wars, if we didn't have countries being dismantled, if we didn't have different superpowers coming in within countries that they didn't even need to come in. You know, and that's a whole another spiel, but the Middle East was peaceful as ever. And people forget, and another topic is like Israel, Palestine, you know, as Israel, Palestine Muslims and Jewish communities used to live peacefully together. People have to understand that, you know, perfectly peacefully together. Yes, there's turmoil now, but they used to live peacefully together. There wasn't always turmoil. The Muslim community does not hate all Jewish people. You know, that's another thing I want to take out, because like I said before, the Jewish community supports the Muslim community more than any community sometimes in the United States. And that's only because we look just like them. I remember I had a student when I was in Kean. His name was Benjamin, and he was a Hasidic Jew, and he talked about how he wants to go to Israel, and I was like, I want to go to Palestine. It looks beautiful. And we both talked about how it's a beautiful country. It is a beautiful country. And my only prayer is that one day it could come together and we could have a peaceful resolution to a lot of the disputes that are happening there. You know, inshallah that can happen. But another way we can, you know, do that is by talking. You know, it's by having these conversations, we can disprove these myths. You know, disprove these myths that are these preconceived notions, this rhetoric that we keep hearing. You know, my prayer is that hopefully in the next election, we don't have another president that goes with this rhetoric to say, you know, Islam is bad, or I'm sick of seeing that. As Muslims, we're sick of seeing that. As Muslims, we're here just as everybody else. We're sitting here and we're just United States citizens. You know, I'm an American Pakistani. You know, I'm an American Pakistani citizen. You know, I was brought here when I was really young and I became a citizen. You know, I know more about this country than my own country, which makes me sad a little bit, but I know the culture of both, you know. But in the end of it all, Muslims are just as American as any other American here. You know, we have to understand that these myths can only be disproven by having conversation as this, but one, having an open mind to discuss these conversations. You know, have these uncomfortable conversations, like Jim, you just said, within these circles to help disprove these myths. And that's the only way we can do it. And if anybody else wants to ask a question or chime in about that, it'd be lovely.
Yeah, Muhammad Hasan has his hand up.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about, you know, the women in Islam. It is kind of funny when I look at women and this issue. I really tell people that when you look at the laws of Islam, as a man, I feel I'm oppressed. But let me explain it to you. Why do I say this? And you guys will be very happy about it. That when you look at the financial parts of it, let's keep the hijab away. This is something we'll discuss in a second. If you look at the financial part, right? So a woman, so when you have a daughter, as a daughter, you're going to take care of your daughter. Let's say you pass away, your a lot of people say, because the way that Islamic law works is when your finances are distributed, the boy gets one piece, the daughter get half of it, the financial, right? So now everybody says, oh, it's oppression. It should not happen. It should be half and half. So now let me give you a little bit more details on it. So now when father passes away, daughter gets half, the man gets full, 2 or 1, right? The full. The man has to take care, the brother has to take care of the sister completely. Sister does not have to spend a single penny. Okay. Now think about this, that when she gets married, she still has that money, that half that she got from her father. And then husband has to take care of the wife, 100%. Now, if the wife works, so if let's say my wife works, all of her money is her money. And my money is her money too, right? So think about this, that the money that she got from her father is still with her. The money that she makes is still hers. And then she has full right over my money. My wife has full right over my money. So this way, when you look at the math, she is in full benefit. And as a man, we have to take care of our daughters, our sisters. We have to make sure that everything is in place. So financially, when you take a look at it, really, as a man, I really feel that the women has better opportunities financially. So there is no oppression there.
I agree, Muhammad, 100% to that. People forget, like people say, hey, in Islam, you can marry multiple women. You can only marry multiple women if you could fully responsibly handle multiple women. If you have the money for it, one, if you have the capability. And Islam, it says if you can't give the same love to the woman you first married, you can't marry another woman. You can't. It's profound upon. And like Muhammad said, women get all the gold. Men can't wear gold. Women can't. That's another thing. People have to understand. Women wear gold. Men can't. And Muhammad, if you want to talk about that too, I would love for it.
Yeah, no. So when you look at all these aspects of wearing gold, diamonds, and everything, again, gold is now, men are not allowed to wear gold because of the fact that in old times, long clothes, the ones that are touching the ground, gold, because in long, when in the time of Prophet and before that, anybody who had pride in themselves and very proud, they used to wear and used to think that they're really rich. They used to wear long clothes that are going over the ground. So that would make them really feel rich. They'll wear a lot of gold. And that's why men are not allowed to wear gold or really long clothes that are going on the ground. So they're not allowed to do that. Women's, covering, everybody is different. Having a headscarf, like Hasan has a beard. I don't have a beard. I had a beard, took it off, right? Because my wife asked me to. This is kind of a funny story, but we'll talk about that later. So now that does not mean that Hasan is a better Muslim than me. Or if I have a bigger beard, I'm going to become a good Muslim. Look at the terrorists. They have the biggest beards ever. They look like Muslims, right? But they are terrorists. Now, wearing something does not and should not represent how you look like. But people have put this tag on people that if you have beard, if you have a hijab, you're a Muslimah. If you are a Muslim woman, if you have a beard, you're a Muslim man. This is not how it works. You need to understand if we have the character for that religion. As a Muslim, I need to make sure that I am following Islam, the path of Islam. Any religion, the religion is a path. If you're following it, then you become the followers of that religion. So as Muslim, I need to make sure that I am doing things peacefully. I'm talking to people, taking care of them as much as I can. when it comes to being aggressive, and Hasan has brought it up, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he made sure that we understand what happens in the war. During the war, the orders have been given by Prophet. We follow Prophet. Every Muslim follows Prophet Muhammad, right? So during the war, it is made sure that you don't kill poor people, you don't kill people who are old, you don't kill children, you don't kill women, you don't hurt them at all. If anybody, if you're fighting with someone, they come under your shadow of your horse, you don't kill that person, you don't hurt that person. They are in your security. You don't hurt any crops, you don't burn crops, you don't burn temples or any place of religion. You don't hurt or break any place of religion. And I'm talking to you during a war. These are the orders for during the war. Forget about normal times. In normal times, you can't touch nobody. People used to come Christian or other religion people, or that time, you can call it Hinduism. The people used to pray in the mosque of Prophet, right? Prophet did not say nothing to them. Prophet said their religion, their attitude, their selves, they belong to their religion, you belong to your religion. Let them do things the way that they want to do. You do things the way that you want to do. When the one of the Caliph of Islam, Umar, he took over an area and he went to the mosque and temple, this Christian temple. He said, and it was time to do prayers. He said, the priest said, you can pray here. He said, no, I'm not going to pray here. I'm going to pray outside. And people could have taken it wrong. He explained to them that if I pray here, then the people who are coming after me, they will take this temple down and make this a mosque. He knew that the people who are coming in would not follow the real Islam. We need to go back to our roots as Muslim. I'm telling all of the Muslims here, first I'm telling myself that we need to go back to the roots and follow the Islam. Today, these days, there are huge crises that are happening in Pakistan because some French person said something or whatever. Now, I ask a question to everyone there who are being aggressive, that they are saying that, being Muslim is important and nobody can disrespect Prophet Muhammad. But think about this, if a non-Muslim disrespects Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, even for Prophet Muhammad, it was okay. During his time, I'll give you an incident later on. But people who are doing these craziness in Pakistan and other areas, they don't follow Islam. They take bribes, they measure less, they weigh less, they give people wrong type of money, they do corruption. That's not religion of Islam or any religion, really.
And to add to that, and we look at history, we look at the Crusades, the great leader Salahuddin, when he came to the footsteps of Jerusalem, and when he conquered Jerusalem, when he conquered the 3-year battles, that he had, when the Christian soldiers stopped fighting, he could have slaughtered them. He could have went one way and said, hey, we don't want your people here, but he gave them a choice. He said, you either can leave or you can be part of this society. And if you don't want to be part of this society and contribute in a way that's respectable enough to be in this society, you shouldn't be here. He gave them the option, but it was never the option of, hey, we're going to kill you on the spot. No, he showed them mercy, like Hamza just said. He showed them that, hey, what we do when we practice our religion is the most peaceful way of practicing. We don't come here to incite violence. We came here for our purpose, but we're not going to go above that purpose and become radical and become crazy and become people of no moral high ground. He kept that promise. He kept that, and that is the great sense of his principles and his values that came from Islam itself. He never let that take over himself when it came to seeing, Muslim soldiers and Muslim men and women getting killed. He didn't let that hatred take over. And Muhammad was going to get to a story of our prophet, peace be upon him, Muhammad, in a situation where, there was a situation where someone threw garbage at him, and he didn't go back to the woman that threw garbage at him in a way where what we would do. If someone threw garbage at me, I'll be honest, I don't think I'll be able to control myself. If someone threw garbage at me, I don't know. Maybe my boxing skills, would come in. I don't know. It could happen. But the great, our prophet didn't do that. Our prophet said, okay. And every time he walked by that street, so he used to walk this way, someone would throw garbage at him. Someone would throw garbage at him. And it's the same lady. And he would keep walking. The lady would keep throwing it at him. And eventually one day he walks that the lady isn't there. And no one throws garbage at him. And he finds out the lady's sick. He finds out the lady's sick. And you know what he does that a lot of us wouldn't do? He goes to the lady and he tries to help the lady out. Well, imagine someone threw garbage at you for the 4 years you were in Kean, threw garbage at you, or your entire life. And then they get sick and you go, hey, I'm going to go help them out by giving them chicken noodle soup. That's the mercy and that's the patience Islam teaches us. And people don't realize that's the beauty of this religion. Muhammad Ali, to quote somebody that's historical in the American landscape, Muhammad Ali once quoted, I don't live for this world, I live for the world after. The reason what I do in this world is to do as much good as I can so I can have a better life in the afterlife. He wanted to do as much good as he can. He wanted to be as the best person as he can be to everybody, and to around him. He wanted to do as good as much as possible. And I tell that to myself every day. When I was all I wanted to do was work with nonprofits. All I want to do is help people. I wanna serve the public. I want to do something where I feel like, hey, if I was gone from this world, at least they could say, hey, he helped as many people as I could. And that's my goal. In the end of it, it could be in the sense of charity. It could be in the sense of just being the nicest person ever. My mom, you told me in elementary school, used to smile. It's a good deed. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did it. And I used to be the weirdest, cheesing little kid in elementary school, cheesing at everybody. I just thought it was a good deed and I'm going to do it, But maybe it made people uncomfortable. I don't know. But, I still smile till this day. It just, no matter what, I'll give you a smile. I treat people the way they need to be treated, with respect. And if you don't treat me the way with respect, I'm going to walk another way, Just going to walk another way. It's just, that's how it is. And I know have 5 minutes left. If anybody else has questions or just comments and just want to talk about it. And hey, Tia, it's been a long time. I haven't seen you in a while. Want to speak, can speak, Tia, you can speak. I'm going to call you out.
I think that this was super educational. I feel like having discussions like this and programs like this is very good, especially at Kean, because we're so diverse and we all come from different backgrounds and different places throughout the world. So I think this was very good, and it shed light on topics that I usually don't even talk about, like topics I wouldn't even think that I would have a conversation of. So I think this was really great for me personally.
And that's what we love hearing, and that's the reason we have these conversations. And I've seen you smile, Lauren. So we're going to go to you next. Any comments, any thoughts, any questions?
I want to go back to something that you said earlier about we shouldn't really judge people's differences. I challenge people to even go a step further and celebrate people's differences. I agree exactly what Tia said. Like, these are a lot of things that I don't really talk about much. I feel like I learned a lot just from listening in. I know one thing that I would love to gain clarity on, not that we can have the conversation now, but just want to share. I know that I have a friend that practices, she's Muslim and her family is from Pakistan. And she was talking about like how her family and how her culture differs a lot from what her religion is. So she was even kind of confused with what to do and how could she get back to focusing on her religion. So like through a conversation, I've learned a little bit about the religion, a tiny bit, and then through this here, learning even more. So I think that, again, conversations like this are extremely helpful. And I think that it's not just, it's anyone that has that issue of getting stuck in what's happening today, what's happening in media, what's happening in this, when you're really, should be focused on something completely different. So great stuff.
Thank you for that, Lauren. And you hit something to a point, like Muhammad said, we need to, as Muslims, we need to get back to the roots. We confuse culture with religion sometimes. We put our own culture and say, hey, that's the truth, when it's not the truth. That's not our religion. That's a problem in our society, and there's a lot of issues within our cultures. For example, people from the Middle East or South Asian, colorism is such a huge issue. Colorism is an issue that impacts everybody in I think impacts almost everybody in the Muslim community. Not everybody has, a lighter skin, and just because they have a darker skin doesn't mean they're, not as pretty as someone else. And that's something women face in Pakistan all the time, but because of culture and colorism within it, that people think, hey, no, lighter skinned women are better suited, and they bleach skin, and bleaching is a big issue in Pakistan because of that. And that's just one example of how culture takes over a religion sometimes, and takes over how one person perceives things. And Hamza, you have your hand up.
Bouncing off what you said about our differences and whatnot, and how it's just the difference in our color of skin that really shouldn't really set us apart. I think there's a lot of different ideologies that have been left behind by the British Empire, Romans, and even after World War II, that really state that oh, because your skin is say fairer than this other person, you're better than them. Or since you grew up here instead of this place, you're better than this person. And that kind of supremacy, even we're kind of taught those ideals today, especially when it comes to young impressionable kids watching their YouTube cartoons and news and whatnot. And I feel it's really important for us to kind of unlearn those stereotypes and unlearn those ideologies, so that it kind of brings us together, and that we can set aside our differences and do better.
I love that. And I love that you incorporated history. I'm a big history buff. I love to see that. Example, you brought up British colonialism, imperialism going on with the British. The reason there's so much colorism in South Asian communities, hey, they were colonized from the British, and the British had Indians as slaves and were trading them, and that systemic root just stayed in. And Alexandra, I think you had your hand up. You put your hand down, but if you would like to say something, you can go ahead. Okay. Tiffany, I think we're out of time. If you want to wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, that was a great discussion, everyone. So as far as next time, so we're having this meeting again on April 27th, but next Tuesday on April 27th, we will be having it in the evening at 7:50 at this Zoom location. And we're going to be doing an iftar, so a breaking of the fast. So you can bring any food that is appropriate that you would like. And then we will be doing that. So just so you know, next time we are not meeting at this time, we are meeting in the evening, so 7:50.
Yeah, 7:50 is when all Muslims are going to break their fast, and they're having an iftar, Zoom. Bring food, drink some water, while your Muslim brothers and sisters wait for the 7:50 to eat. It should be fun. And thank you guys for all participating and sharing your comments. I love it. Tia, I miss you. Haven't seen you in a while. And yeah, thank you guys.
All right. Thank you everyone for participating and who asked questions and gave comments. We'll see you next week.